experiencing this. So it's highly unlikely that there's much the city could have done.
Okay, I now have 5:15. Both recording, the recording is back on, so we are able to proceed with the meeting.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience. All right. Well, what I'll do is just get through my chair report quickly. Just wanted to let you all know that at the City Plan Commission meeting, they reviewed what we submitted to them regarding getting the airport in the TID district. The Plan Commission voted to strip some portions of that out, runway taxiway, but no definitive decision's been yet. It'll have to go to the Common Council. This is just for your information. And otherwise, I think that's pretty much about all I have to pass along from the city. Oh, one other thing, there was a public notice given to the city, and there will be a development going in on the south end of the north-south runway. And that's it. That's all I got. Brian, updates on BOA, other news, tree trimming?
Just one thing before we get to that,
Mhm.
just to have the commission review and accept the minutes.
Oh, sorry. I accept the minutes as submitted. Does anybody have any comments? Okay, commissioners, thank you.
Okay, and then in terms of BOA stuff, I have no updates on the tree trimming item as of yet. Still working with Bead and Hunt and the BOA on how they'd like to proceed with that. We are working, as I've mentioned in past meetings, with the BOA on scheduling for the timeline for the Runway A project work. The thing that we're working on now is with the BOA on when some of the environmental work can get done yet this year. So we're trying to figure out the schedule for that with BOA staff and staff from Mead and Hunt. So as soon as I have a date for when that work can be underway, I'll let the commission know. But that would then inform kind of the schedule going forward for 2027.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions for Brian? And I don't see anybody. Okay, all right. Rich, how about a manager's report?
Okay, everyone hear me all right?
Yep.
Very good. So from June 29 through July 31, 2026, 6 individuals made 16 noise or overflight reports via phone, email, one or two to Mr. Gatto, and on the city, online reporting site. One individual made 7 reports, one did 5, and the individuals who wished to be contacted were responded to via phone or email. Again, no apparent violations of FAA regulations were apparent in these reports. Aircraft reported to be appeared to be following the voluntary noise abatement procedure and were in the pattern during the vast majority of the overflights. There was one call about someone doing air work at 5,000 feet over Black Earth. So we do get some interesting phone calls. Now, no accidents or incidents reported on the field. The mowing continues, and big news, EA Pancake Breakfast was hosted in the Maury Airplane Maintenance Company maintenance hangar. August 12, over 1,700 breakfasts were served. And again, the hangar inspections are almost complete. We still have a few hangars to look over. Everything seems to be in order, and there were a few trailers that were being stored out here. I believe all or almost all of them have been removed, and we're going to work on the rest of it to make sure everything is in compliance. Events held at the Maury Conference Room, the Women in Aviation Meteorology presentation, June 6th, EA Chapter 93 meeting, July 8th. The VMC Safety Seminar meeting was July 9th. Camp Willa Brown event, July 8th through 10th, again, underrepresented kids get involved with aviation with that. And the Wisconsin Floral Design Guild met July 27th. Future events, EA chapter meeting the 12th, BMC safety seminar 13th, Willa Brown, Madison Middle School flight partnership. We'll be doing flights August 22. Sierra Space Aviation Day. Sierra Space is a local business. They wanted to partner, come on over and have a tour of the airport. So we're going to do that. And Wisconsin Floral Design will again meet August 24th. And 4 Maury students received their private certificates in July. Now, on a very special note, one of our students, a graduate from Middleton High School, Sarah Siddiqui, and Igor Sharonev, also a Middleton resident who graduated from Middleton High School. They're both former students of Maury Airplane Company. Both are former flight instructors from Maury Airplane Company. Both now work for SkyWest Airlines. Sarah was Igor's primary flight instructor from his private all the way up through his, at least through the commercial, probably all the way through his flight instructor. She went off to the airlines. Igor followed. They just had their first flight together. They're both domiciled in Milwaukee. So they had a 4-day flight, and that just shows people that wonder about the value of this airport. There are city residents who are making careers out of aviation and doing quite well with it. So we're very proud of them. Capital Flights Show, August 8th, the Saturday. That will be, there's more details on the web, but that will be running, leave it, gates open about 10 o'clock. It'll run through 2 o'clock. And Maury Airplane Company is cooperating with Capital Flight to make sure the barricades and various things are up. And again, always check Capital Flight's social media for future barbecue dates. All are welcome.
All right, thank you very much, Rich. Appreciate that. Okay. First discussion item is consideration possible action.
Mr. Chair, we've got 2 individuals
David.
with their hands
Oh, man.
open. Commissioner Young and
Okay.
then Commissioner Randall.
Clipping along, sorry about that. Commissioner Young, I guess your hand's up first. Thank you.
Sorry, guys. 2 things. I think the commissioner's report went by pretty quickly here, and I didn't want to make sure I understood 2 things. You comment there's a development. There's a development that's going in on the south side of the north-south runway. Is that correct? What do we know about that? And I assume that's going through the normal FAA procedures for.
Yeah.
And is in compliance with the structural heights and that kind of stuff. What is that all about?
Yeah, that is correct. It's just for your information, but yes, it's going through all the proper channels via the city, and so we really can't turn it into a discussion item. But yes, it's been vetted by the city, and I did do some follow-up behind the scenes. It's a business that was originally wanted to be on the west side of the street, and now they're coming back to the city again to be on the east side of the street in the same, almost similar location. About almost a year ago now, probably.
Okay. I guess the second thing, could the alders that are on the commission talk a little bit about or just give, I guess, background on your playback on the total council meeting and the opinions of inclusion or exclusion of airport projects in the proposed TIF district?
That has not gotten to council yet for their review. The project plan has only been in front of the plan commission, so it will be coming forth to the city council. I'm not sure if it's exactly going to be the August 18th meeting, but it'll be sometime in late August or early September. They'll review it, and then we'll have comments on it at that point.
Okay. So that isn't something that's is done. It's been proposed as such, though?
From the plan commission, correct.
Okay.
Sure.
Just a minor thing on the airport manager's report, the EAA pancake breakfast was July 12th, not August 12th coming up.
Thank you. All right. Checking hands one more time. Oh, David's here in the flesh. You went to your iPad, didn't you? Yeah, that makes sense. Doesn't surprise me. Okay. Now, discussion, consideration, and potential action on the Capital Flight land lease expansion and facilities development proposal. Brian and Matt Fleming, let's dive into this. You can bring it up on screen. I think what I'd like to do is to simply address the open questions from Brian and Matt Fleming. What are you looking for tonight from this body, so we can move this along?
Yes, so I think that what we're looking for from this body is direction on whether to proceed with this proposal. So we've talked about this proposal in past airport commission meetings. The applicant has put together a revised concept plan that the commission can discuss and take a look at. The city attorney is working with the applicant's attorney on a potential a lease agreement for the project if it were to move forward. I think the majority of the items have or can be addressed in terms of things like signage that we talked about at a previous meeting. I'll let the city attorney kind of update the group on if there's any outstanding items that need commission feedback or recommendation on. But mainly that what we're looking for from the commission tonight is, given the information that you've seen in the past and the information that's been provided today, do you have a recommendation on this project? Whether it moves forward on to Plan Commission and ultimately the City Council for consideration.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Matt Fleming.
Sure. So among the remaining issues that we've been talking about, and it's helpful to have this drawing up. First, I think last time we had a fairly robust discussion about this ramp area out in front, and we really needed to just clarify what the intentions were, what Capital Flight needed there. And so, and certainly Jeff or Matt hop in if I state this incorrectly, but I think what they are looking for and what we would need to include in the draft lease is rights to, if you see those last two tie down or parking spots there, they would want to be able to have exclusive rights to those two spots, and of course, unobstructed access from the building out onto the rest of the ramp. And so, I think the way I envision handling that, I mean, I think the two tie down spots would have to be incorporated into what we're talking about as leased area. I would still tend to kind of define rent by building square footage. And, this is segueing a little bit into the next issue in terms of land lease rates, but I don't think that this adds a significant amount to the existing rate, or really that it makes a lot of sense to have a separate rate for this. I would, I guess, advise just kind of subsuming the rights to those two spots within the per square foot of building lease rate that we've been talking about. And they had initially opposed, I think it's $2.14. So, I don't know if we add a few cents to that, but based on the other information I've been seeing in terms of lease rates for hangars and different uses, it seems very tied to the type of use that's going on at the location, and some of the other lease rates that I've seen for just building storage and mechanical stuff are extremely low compared to lease rates for more of a retail, public facing sort of business. So I don't know that I've landed on a specific number, but I think a fairly low nominal addition to the $2.14 proposed rate is what seems to make sense to me. And then just simply include in the lease language, including, the memorializing the unobstructed right to have buildings enter and leave the building and access the ramp and runways that way. So I think I've already hit on the lease rate. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of great information and comparables, but based on what I have seen, including reviewing what Capital Flight has for a lease at the Waukesha Airport, I do think what they are proposing in that $2.14 is roughly accurate for the type of use and location. Then we also talked about what really is going on with the park. That's the intentions and obligations. And I understand that Capital Flight is still willing to construct this viewing pavilion and other improvements to this area here, but that after that is constructed, the Capital Flight's obligations to that area would cease. That would essentially constitute replacement and actually improvement of the viewing area. All future maintenance, liability, and the whole 9 yards this would essentially be a public viewing area. Of course, Capital Flight would have the right to use it just like any other members of the public. We'd probably have to think about, if it's ever reserved for Capital Flight events, we probably might have to address that in the lease. What kind of system would be involved? Much like party shelter reservation systems, but otherwise, that would basically no longer be Capital Flight's obligation once those improvements were constructed. Now, one of the issues we also had looked into, though, is based on existing and potential future plans, whether really any of this would ever interfere with future RPZs. And I think Brian had some of that stuff in the packet.
Yeah, it's there. You can
my
down to it.
My review of that, and certainly David or anyone else has looked at it, and let me know if I kind of misinterpreted what I was reading. But my understanding is that nothing about the park or the building is going to interfere with any of the future plans, except if there was a future extension and realignment of the north-south runway. And so, it's that last option there. And, we talked about that a bit, I believe, at the last meeting where we discussed this. And I don't know if we got any consensus on this, but I know at least one of the ideas discussed here is that, that option or, realignment and extension is certainly not something that's going to happen anytime in the near future. And, maybe something that never actually happens. And given that, do we consider that to be one concern or impediment to the relocation of the viewing area to this point? And knowing certainly that if we ever did do that realignment and extension, that we could have an alternative area where we'd have to move that. The only other concern that I think is a concern of ours and probably Capital Flight's as well, I believe if we have a closer view of that ultimate scenario, I think that RPZ would also cross into not the initial 8,800 square feet of building proposed, but it does look like it might interfere with the sort of proposed possible building expansion. Now, right now, we don't really even have that expansion talked about in the lease either. But I mean, I think it's something both parties need to be aware of, and you know, I guess you know, moving a pavilion and a seating area is a much different proposition than giving rights to expanding a building and perhaps a building being constructed there, and then we want to, you know, move the RPZ or, you know, do that runway extension. So I think that's an issue we sort of need to pin down. It you know, for me, it seems like the safe route is to just simply not include the expansion rights right now in the lease. But you know, that's one aspect we have not had the chance to talk about. As a matter of fact, I don't think Capital Flight has yet seen these drawings. I didn't see them until I think Greg Stern sent this stuff out to us while I was gone on vacation last week. So I never really even saw them until yesterday. Then the final issue we've been talking about a little bit that was out there was building signage, and I think Brian and David and I talked a bit about that before I went on vacation, and I think we all agree for a variety of reasons that we can discuss further if we like, but for a variety of reasons that signage really ought to just be controlled by the city sign code. There does not seem to be any compelling reason to have, you know, any sort of greater review or you know, approval authorities over the signage. And so that's, I guess, where I kind of see the other sort of outstanding issues are, and yeah, certainly others may have other ideas, but that's all I
Mr.
have.
Chair, if I may, just to add on to one point that the city attorney made on the question about the long-term ultimate condition for the RPZ. I did have a chance to briefly speak with Mead and Hunt about the map, and one of the things that they mentioned is that you know, that is a drawing or a snapshot in time. It's not to say that that is the only configuration that would necessarily exist for the ultimate condition, meaning that, you know, depending on how in the future, if we were to pursue that option of a north-south runway, you know, how that is angled, how that north-south runway is angled, and the corresponding RPZ could be adjusted in the future before any such project occurred. So I guess I'd want to caution the commission about that drawing that's shown in the bottom right corner is how it necessarily has to be in the future. So there is the opportunity, you know, to look at how that is designed if we so choose that option in the future.
Okay, I think David had his hand up, and then Kara.
Yeah, I'll just basically ask a couple questions or address a couple of issues that were just brought up, and maybe add another issue to it. First of all, the concept of unobstructed access. I just want to make sure there's some understanding of what unobstructed access means. Currently, that area, which will be outside the immediate ramp space for this new hangar, is regularly used for run-ups. It's regularly, not as frequently as run-ups, but it is still regularly used for parking planes, at least temporarily. And so I think we really need to understand what unobstructed access means, and how much of the current common space for use of other airplane users of the airport are going to be giving up or restricted by that being there. My second point was when you were talking about the lease rate. I know Brian Gatta did a yeoman's job, dug out some studies from, I think, BOA throughout the state of what all various airports charge, and there's a extensive what different airports charge for different use of hangars. My conclusion in reading that documentation is that essentially commercial hangars pay 3 times the square footage rate that recreational hangars pay. I just throw that out there. That's what the documentation seemed to show. I also wanted to mention comparable to the ramp space. There's going to be parking space that's now being used for business purposes of Capital Flight, and whether or not it's in the best interest of the city of Middleton to have an accommodation in terms of some sort of lease rate for the extra parking space that's going to be taken up. Mentioned the signage issue. Looking at the renderings, I think it is important that the Airport Commission have some input into ultimate signage. I can see a scenario where the people with the city that aren't associated with the Airport Commission or don't have knowledge of how the airport functions and works, approving a very nice looking sign, but not understanding how it might fit into the whole FBO and the other signage that is there. So I think it is important that the Airport Commission have input into any signage that ultimately gets put in there. I want to add bring up another issue. I guess two issues. On the documents that were provided in the materials that we received to consider this matter, there's Capital Flight's undated letter from originally that references, and I'm quoting, the community, that one of the things this new hangar is going to do is allow community engagement activities, and specifies community gatherings, corporate functions, civic celebrations, and more. And I don't see anything in the lease that addresses that, a process or a procedure for that. Frankly, I don't know if it's reasonable to suggest that Capital Flight, give up access to its, commercial use building for those things, but it was put in that letter. And if there is going to be access for those things that are not commercial endeavors of Capital Flight, that was suggested in that letter, if there's going to be that, it should be addressed. If there's not going to be that, we should all recognize that and go forth knowing that. And then I'll just make a last comment for the benefit of looking at things in the future. I know Section 7B of the lease indicates that the ultimate construction plans will have to be reviewed and assessed. And that's fine. I think that's appropriate. But I also note, just going in terms of spending a bunch of money for construction plans, the two or three renderings in the documents that we received are substantially different, in my opinion. It's the same facade of a building, but one building, juts out into the existing parking lot, and in my mind minimizes the existence of, for anybody who doesn't know, driving in, it minimizes the existence of the current FBO and Middleton Maury Airport, whereas the other rendering is much different because it's set back equivalent to where the plane company or the FBO is. And so again, I think that's again nothing that can be solved tonight. For to approve construction plans, I think that's something Matt Fleming may want to discuss with us before he goes to a lot of expense in terms of what the commission thinks that the placement of that building should be. Because to me, again, the renderings have a substantial effect, different effect between the couple of renderings and the documents we saw tonight. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Randall, you're next.
Well, actually, I'm glad David had his hand up first because he hit all the topics that I wanted to bring up with much more articulation than I could have. So I just want to say that I have the same questions and thoughts or concerns or ideas that he just brought up on all those points. I just, for my own understanding and clarity, I want to back up to the RPZ for a second. For those of you who are really versed in this, what actually can exist in an RPZ? Like what can fall in there, like structure, anything, according to the BOA FAA?
Not a lot. I mean, that in terms of really any sort of habitated structure, I think is effectively eliminated.
Can like the electrical box or, I mean,
That I'm not sure of. I mean, I can see certainly how that could create an additional hazard. The RPZ is primarily, there to remove obstructions and protect individuals. Electrical boxes don't necessarily fit nearly in that, but I haven't looked at the rules specifically with an eye towards that. I really have only dug into it with respect to certain proposed buildings that have come along, and
yeah.
um,
Yeah, I guess just for clarification, it would be nice to know what exactly can and cannot exist, in an RPZ with all these little, shifts that we're looking at or possibilities. That was just for my own edification or clarification. And then regarding that unobstructed access on the ramp, it was new to me in the last meeting where we talked about this. Somehow I missed about the taxiway A modification, that the access from the runway 1028 to taxiway A to the ramp is going away. And I apologize if I missed that in some other conversation, but I wanted to have a better understanding of what is a solid change that's already been agreed on with the FAA that's not changeable. Are there any possibilities of modifying what was brought up last time? And then how this relates to the capital flight proposal. I'm still looking at concerns about ingress and egress from the taxiway to the ramp and the flow. If what I understood last time, that middle access was going away, how that affects a proposal of a business going in that area. So I don't know who wants to address all of that, but it's a black cloud for me right now.
Sure. I can just briefly tell you. So with the elimination of the one entrance spot onto the ramp, that entrance spot could be shifted to the west. It's just FAA said no more direct access from the runway to the ramp. So
in that case, we could still have 3.
You could.
And what would it take? Like, what kind of process and time to get clarification that could be approved?
In our conversations with Mead and Hunt, they simply said it can be done. It could be worked into the scope of a project. So it really comes down to a capacity to afford it, to know what the impact on the project would be, timeline, technical things like that, but it can be done.
And is this one of the things that nothing is going to happen until we have a project? Or is this something that's going to happen by a certain date as mandated by FAA?
It's not mandated. It's just we have the taxiway and the runway project scoped out with a time frame set, and that's happening, and it has nothing to do with Capital Flight's proposal. They're completely separate things. So it has zero impact. It's just that's that. Kyle. I'm sorry, Cara, did I cut you off?
No, you didn't cut me off.
Okay.
I still don't have clarity on it, but I don't know that this is the time to clear that up for me. Yeah.
The two aren't related. I mean, that's
right. I get they're not related.
Yeah.
And what I do feel is related is I want to have a better understanding of the impact of flow on the ramp and the space to be leased, because I'm potentially seeing, I have a concern.
Mead and Hunt had no concerns with the hangar or tie down space in front of the hangar with regard to aircraft movement on the ramp. Kyle, finally.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up a similar thing that Kara just said along there. I mean, if Mead and Hunt said there's no issue on that, then that's good on there, especially if we can offset that taxaway entrance there as well too. I mean, I do think we will lose potential usage or flow from that taxi from the entrance that's furthest east, right by the compass rose. Um, I'm curious on that as well too, like if it will, especially going back off of as we were talking earlier with the two different kind of renderings on there. One rendering looks great. It's kind of fully, I like how it looked fully integrated with the existing FBO. The other, again, kind of supersedes that and makes it kind of hides it on there. But then that's going to be offset back. I don't know, any kind of traffic flow along in that area. Something I'd want to see as well too. And then secondly, on that as well, just something along the lines, I think obviously an expansion here, and I may be jumping the gun slightly for the next agenda item on that as well too, but I think they can they'll be kind of combined in on there. We have a lot of development coming, a lot of housing development coming northeast of the runway. I'm sorry, east of the airport. Incidentally, in my neighborhood, or just a little bit past my neighborhood. But that's something I'd be concerned about with a large increase of new student pilots. Itself a good thing. We want more student pilots. I don't know, especially with the different performance characteristics of the aircraft, how well any kind of transient instructors or transient students will know and understand the voluntary noise abatement.
So let's hang on a sec.
Yeah.
That's getting into item 2, so let's
Yeah.
hold that off, and just keep it to the physical elements of the capital flight proposal. And okay, Jack, your hand's up.
Thanks, guys. A number of things. I'm not convinced the ramp area conflict is all that. I think, if you're taking off on 10, people tend to, they taxi to the furthest exit that's closest to 10 and do their run-ups and things like that. I think there's a lot of space on the ramp there and in front of the existing FBO. If you're taxiing to 28, people stop on the furthest, western exit of 28 and do their run-ups and stuff like that before they join the taxiway. So I'm not convinced that we're creating space issues here. And I gotta respectfully disagree with the signage, David, the signage comment too. I agree if there's signage inside the fence, we should maybe have some, review or opportunity to opine on what it is. But if it's outside the fence, you're just a commercial operator, just like anybody else in the city, and you're subject to the city's regulations. That's my opinion. So I don't necessarily agree that we would have a right to comment on exterior building signage outside the fence. In terms of the public usage, I think the intent here is to do exactly, pretty much what they have been doing in terms of sponsoring public events and building awareness of the airport and the business and promoting aviation and other things in the airport. But I think just like the existing FBO, if there's something that they can house and it works for them and it's in support of the airport or it's germane to the airport, I think they've shown in the past they're willing to support that stuff. So I think that's the spirit. I'm not sure how you codify that or if it needs to be codified in the lease or not, but I think that's the spirit of what is trying to happen here. And then lastly on lease rates, I think I'm not sure why we're debating lease rates. We have precedents for lease rates and all of our operators at the airport. I'm assuming if we're instituting a special lease rate or commercial lease rate for this project, we're going to do it for all commercial operators on the airport. And, it should be level playing field across the board, whether that's for existing plant property on, a building and facility, or it's for leasehold tie down areas or whatever the case might be on the ramp. Those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, to your comment on that, we would have, federal law requires that whatever we would do, we have to be consistent in how we assess our rates. And oh, I see Aldermeyer's hand is up. Where'd he go?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
now you're on the other side of my screen. Sorry. Go ahead. Thank you.
So for the specific tie downs adjacent to the proposed structure, because our lease rates should reflect use, we can calculate the economic value of those tie down spots with the data that we have already, and for tie down rentals, and we can just we can add that in. That's not something that we need to go too into the weeds on, in terms of trying to determine it. It's we have the data. We have the data already. In terms of the signage that's being discussed, if it's a sign in the city of Middleton, our signage ordinance as updated, and Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my recollection is that we changed our sign code so that it only even has to go to the plan commission
That is correct.
if it's a sign that can't be constructed by right.
Yep.
So I do want to caution my commissioners about expectations they may have, on my fellow commissioners, on expectations they may have about regulating certain aspects of the signage. I think that the only reason that it would come to the airport commission is if the sign were something unlike anything that's in any of the proposed drawings and in a different location. So I don't think that's worth discussing, and I'd really encourage us to get back to the points that our city attorney raised with his concerns with the lease and where he needed policy guidance from us going forward.
Okay. Oh, Jack, you have your hand up. And you're muted.
Yeah, I guess I want to understand, Charles, how you're thinking about lease rates. I don't understand calculating usage. It's random assignment on usage of the various parking spots out there. I mean, I don't understand the math.
We charge a nightly tie down rate. And we're giving usage of the tie down spots. So we can take the occupancy generated by our average tie down spot over a given year, and that's the economic value of it.
Gotcha.
So can I jump in at all, gang, and kind of clarify some of these points? Unless anybody has anything else. As I'm making
Some-
notes here, I think I should probably go down most of them. Renderings, signage, pictures, they're cartoons, like the building, that's kind of what it looks like, ish. It's our dream, our vision, that sort of thing. Where the land lease actually falls is where the building will actually fall. So I would encourage folks to not get caught up in it's a foot this way, it's a foot that way, it's this, it's that, whatever. The city, of course, does have sign codes, and my contractor put our logo on the side. I didn't say make it this big, make it this big, make it here, make it there. It's just the logo on the side of the building right now. So, again, try not to get too caught up in any of that because it's all just pretty pictures at the moment with that. So, the building does, or I should say, the signage will conform to whatever the city sign code is, and that's, there's a plan commission and that sort of thing, and the ordinance for a reason, and we'll conform to that, and that'll be wonderful. As it relates to lease rates, just to really kind of mirror what Jack said, is I just think it bears either repeating or bringing it up in the first place. Grant assurance number 22 for grant obligated airports, which Middleton is, guarantees economic non-discrimination. So what is there for someone is also there for another person. We have lease rates for commercial operators. There you go. Rich also currently leases, I believe, 2 rows of tie downs, and there's precedent and a rate for that. So there you go. As it relates to the business practice of community events and things like that, this building is being built in a hybrid state. It is aeronautical use first by day. It is the ability to hold events by evening, by night, by weekend, that sort of thing. So it has overbuilt restroom facilities, things like that, to be able to hold larger groups of folks, which people will be able to be in this space, which is rare for an aviation provider to do at all, very rare. And that makes it pretty special as it relates to the community being able to be in this space. We donate ours a lot to various things. Again, we're not strangers here to the airport. People know what we do and how we do it. So if there's any question or clarification on this, I'm happy to talk about it. Tourism, for example, is very excited about this because where can you hold an event in Middleton? Well, Marriott West, that's about it. So this is a very large event potential space for Middleton, and they obviously love that, as do we, as should airport commissioners, given the fact that we've seen the positivity that comes out of the public in any regard coming to our airport, and this will greatly expand that. Did I cover it all?
Yep, I think you did. And just for commissioners' knowledge, Matt Fleming, where in the lease agreement is that language? The last point that Matt Hofelt just touched on.
In terms of events?
Well, in terms of this, just the spirit of it, yes. I mean, not getting granular, but just simply saying Capital Flight makes use of the, makes the building available for aviation events that are community based and educational oriented, for example. Just the blurb in there. So
Right.
what if okay, Maury Inc. has been consistently generous in opening up their main maintenance hangar. But I don't know, what if there's an aircraft in there and it's torn apart and they absolutely cannot make their facility open or something, and maybe there's something really relevant that needs to get done. Go to Capital Flight and say, hey, can you help us out here in this pinch? Community-based aviation event.
And we've always
Right.
been open
You
and
always have, exactly.
excited about that, but make no mistake,
Yep.
folks. This is also an event center. Think
Yep.
about it like the Marriott, like the conference, the big ballroom area of the Marriott, significantly cooler than that. But that is what this is. So it is a hybrid use building that allows both of these business models to work essentially simultaneously through thoughtful design and the willing and desire to do it. Most aeronautical providers and things don't have any desire to do this sort of thing. So it's pretty special.
Yep. Jeff, your hand's up. Jeff Bartson.
I was just looking at the lease, and I don't see specific language that's very easy to drop in as permitted use or expected use, and we can do that. I don't want to say a lot, and I respect the time of all the commissioners. I sit on a couple of commissions locally here, and I know it's hard to be a volunteer and drop in and drop out of these things, and I appreciate all your time, and I mean these comments very respectful. Since I've been involved in this process now, which has almost been a year, I feel like we keep hitting the same issues. And a lot of times we talk about them the same way. And I think there's increasing frustration and pressure to either say yes or no to this project. I know Matt has spent tens of thousands of dollars, maybe upwards of $50,000 to do this for the city of Middleton. And to remind the commissioners, and I don't mean this pejoratively, when the city accepts federal funding, they agree to be bound by federal law and the grant assurances law. And I'm not an expert, but I see a lot of risk here, and I see a lot of things that shouldn't be happening if you're going to comply with the grant assurances. The rates have to be very consistent with other users. The ramp use has to be very consistent with other users, and so on. So I don't see a lot of issues here. And from my perspective, I would hope that this could come back before this body for either a yes, no, or a no vote, and trust the opinions of the professionals like Mead and Hunt and the people who have been working on the technical issues to either move it forward or not, rather than, we don't want to be here a year from now and having spent another $30,000. So thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Yeah, and just to maybe more directly answer your question, David, the current draft of the lease doesn't specifically get into uses beyond reference to having to have a SASO or FBO agreement. Certainly, under the city zoning code for airport, if this is going to be a event space as described, I think a conditional use permit is going to be required. Now, of course, getting a conditional use permit to do something isn't a requirement that you do that thing. But as Matt says, I don't think he is expending this additional money and upgrades and having something that is, I think, pretty clearly something greater than just an ordinary place to hold your airplane.
Well, I mean, Matt, if you're comfortable that when this goes in front of the plan commission and they reference back at our master plan, and it'll pass muster, then okay, then so be it.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's certainly nothing that the plan commission's review that would require, specific descriptions of event uses. But, I do think generally, Matt
seems to be expressing that he's going to kind of continue to, make the space available.
Yeah. And I mean, we could put some sort of broad reference language in there, but I so far throughout we've come back to this discussion now and again, and I don't think we've ever really hit on specifics of what we think ought to be a minimum requirement, and where we have somebody proposing as a part of the use of this, and presumably will be applying for a conditional use permit.
I mean,
I don't know what we want to put in there about it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, the intent of the master plan, I think, made it pretty clear that there must be an opportunity for there to be availability for, an aviation community-based support event.
Well, yeah, the
or hosting.
terminal expansion, or there's sort of public facing.
Yep, that's it.
And I think frankly that may be best addressed in the SASO, which is something that would accompany this, and maybe something that should be coming.
Okay, yeah. Well, then if it's not on a land lease, that's fine. I mean, you're the attorneys, so figure it out, and that's it.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions. That was it. Okay. All right, commissioners, we've answered some questions. I think let's move forward and put it to a vote. The question is, how do we want to frame this? We can just simply state that,
Mr. Chair, we have Commissioner
Oh.
Randall with their hand
oh,
up.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was a little slow getting that up. I wanted, well, first I wanted to say to Jeff Bartson, like, thanks for, for your statement and, and being direct, and there's certainly no offense taken, about anything that you said. And but I have to be honest that, when this came up in November, or whenever, as a conversation to this airport commission, I think the wording is we were to have a conversation about it. So I've been in a conversation, and I totally respect the amount of money that, or whatever that has been, that both the city and Capital Flight have put into doing this. So I wanted to just say that I really respect that. And I also respect Mead and Hunt and their expertise. But for me, it's hard to just say, oh, just trust, when there's an aspect where I would like to actually see some things. For instance, one of the things that I had a question last time was to understand more about, for instance, the corporate traffic that uses our airport as part of their, one of the gifts that we have to the area is that people use their corporate jets to, run their businesses. It's attractive. It brings people here to do business. And I wanted to have an idea of how does that impact the changes with the runway access to also Capital Flight's operation in that area. I just wanted to see, like, how is this going to impact? And if there is a decrease because of the way that things are logistically set up, well, then there's a decrease, and I can make an informed decision on that. If there's not an increase, well, then I have that information. So I don't want to give the sense that I'm trying to put a cog in the wheel for things, but there's questions that I feel with all integrity that I just wanted to have answered. And I may not always be clear about, does something have to be a direct black and white yes or no? I'm always looking for the nuances and the gray areas, but where I could use clarification if something has to be a yes or has to be a no to move forward. If that's one of these decisions, then I guess I need some clarification on that when we move this to a vote.
Sure. Well, here's the thing. We've already taken it to Mead and Hunt and have cleared up those issues. Will this encumber, or will it create a problem for airport flow? Will this proposal that's in front of us impact or have a negative impact on the RPZ or operation of the airport for the current north-south runway state and the future runway state? Not the ultimate runway state, but the future one of just shifting the runway back to getting it to where it was. And all of that is a non-issue. So this isn't, it's kind of harkens back to when Charles and I sit in on building developments where an apartment's going to go up and they do traffic impact analysis studies and things like that. This kind of doesn't take on that flavor. This is just Mead and Hunt looked at it. The building is not a problem. Having a tie-down space in front of the building is not a problem. There's enough space for the classification of aircraft that operate out at the airport to get in and get out of the movement areas. And, that's it. And, Rich, as the airport manager, can certainly chime in if there's any concerns or along those lines. But none of those have been raised at that kind of level. Go ahead, Rich.
Oh, I just wanted to point out, and I think Matt had, he called me and we talked a little bit about it. There will be a gate that's going to be removed if that additional land lease to the east into the access road is accomplished. And obviously, those who designed the airport felt we needed to have an access gate at that point. There is another one on the south side of the terminal building. Currently, the fuel tankers use that for both egress and entrance, that terminal or that gate universally. Could they use the other one? It's possible. Matt also mentioned something about a possibility of putting another gate in and running through. I didn't see, of course, anything of that on the rendering. Now, it is neither I don't have the expertise as an airport designer to say, yes, we absolutely need that gate, or no, we don't. But I do know that that's the gate that is exclusively used by the tankers at this point. It looks to me, yes, they can make the turn. They could go through the other gate as long as that area isn't congested. It typically is full of aircraft. So anyway, that's just something that hasn't been brought up and talked about here. And also, as Matt said, yeah, Maury Airplane Company leases a fairly large section of hangar or tie down areas, excuse me, as well as parking spots. That was part of our initial land lease. So that's fairly straightforward. We should be able to come up with a reasonable bit or fee for something along those lines.
And David and the rest of the commissioners, one thing that I wanted to point out, certainly it's anecdotal, maybe this helps Kara a bit, is, Middleton is relatively limited in turbine transition because of our runway size. And based on actual facts, I don't see that changing probably ever. And our business model being able to grow, obviously a business being able to grow is pretty important, or it starts to kind of go the other direction, which isn't good. But obviously we evolve and have airplanes, including turbines, that can operate efficiently on that runway and will in the future. So federal funds that become more ample due to turbine transitions are something that could be a reward for the additional space to house them as our business expands and evolves. So that's something that will affect everybody positively to get additional, federal funds as a result of those operations. Just wanted to point that out.
Yep, and that is true. The more utilization the airport has, the more attractive it is from a grant recipient standpoint. The other thing to point out, commissioners, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but when the city does proceed down this route where a committee or commission looks at a proposal in front of it, call it a up or down, yes, no vote to say, do we want to do this or do we not want to do this in large kind of scope or picture? It comes back to the city, and that's when the granular detail gets involved. So whether the exact perimeter of the building goes exactly up to X amount of feet up to a perimeter point, or can't go up to a certain perimeter point, those types of things get ironed out at the city planning level with the Mead and Hunts of the world and our planning staff, because we have to comply with all things compliance.
Yeah, yes. So for projects, like you're referencing with housing developments, those type of commercial developments, those type of things. Yes, I mean the granular detail is typically handled by the Plan Commission and City Council through site plan review, in which a project is checked against the city ordinances, state, federal requirements, whatever the case may be, to ensure that the project meets that, or if a variance is required and hardships identified, all that stuff is done as a project moves a little bit further down prior to building permit stage.
Yeah, so I mean, for example, if a fuel truck has to get in to the ramp and get to the fuel farm, we have to remain in compliance with that capability or capacity, whether it's through one gate or another gate, things like that. So I think, where we're at this point as an overall body is Capital Flight has consistently put a proposal in front of us. Hey, we want to do something in that spot, and this is what it's basically going to come out to be in an ideal scenario. And as a body, we're being asked to make a decision on that. So I would like to, I guess, encourage this commission to move ahead with making such a decision in that direction tonight. Because if we hold it off to dive deeper into these smaller questions, I don't know what's going to change. You know, I mean, nothing's going to change with respect to the building. Nothing's going to change, you know, in that sense. It's just, oh, Commissioner Wubin.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I guess the question is, what is the question that we are being asked to vote, potentially vote?
Okay.
Right?
Well, so we have to make a motion. And the motion would simply be, and we can use it for, we can use the item that's in front of us, consideration. Well, let's word it. Brian, let's get some help here. Or Matt Fleming.
Yeah,
Let's
I think
frame
the
a motion.
recommendation would be if the airport commission recommends city council and plan commission approval of the various components to allow for the development of a aviation building on this parcel.
Okay.
And Matt Fleming can chime in if there needs to be something more
Yeah,
detailed than that.
I mean, how would you like to word it right now? Basically, what would you be comfortable with from a city perspective, so we can, you want to draft
So-
something out and put it up on the screen, we'll take a look at it. To put you on the spot. Take your time. Charles, you're usually the wordsmith. Where did you go? You're muted.
I think I'm going to defer to
To city staff on this.
city staff on their preferred wording.
Okay. And just to bring the commission up to speed, I've been in plenty of meetings where this is pretty common, where we'll say, okay, staff person, let's draft something out, let's put it up on the screen and see how it looks. Then there's just no question. And I think it's a prudent way to move ahead.
Okay, I will put up what I've got, and again, not wedded to anything. But the motion in general sense would be the airport commission recommends plan commission and city council approval of a land lease agreement with Capital Flight for development of an aviation-based building at the parcel east of the existing terminal building, and direct city staff to continue to work with the applicant on relevant components of the project.
All righty. Okay, it looks pretty good.
I don't know if
Brian, I'm sorry.
just if the city attorney had any tweaks or modifications to that.
Yeah, I was going to say just that.
It's similar to what I had put down. I said, well, yeah, I think my wording was a little different, but it gets to the same spot. So,
okay, so if you're comfortable with that, then Charles, go ahead.
Only because I know it's going to get added in at plan commission before it goes to council. I'd suggest adding subject to city attorney approval at the end of the
Oh, yeah.
existing terminal build, like right after the existing terminal building. Uh,
I would imagine that is at several points throughout the process, or no?
Yeah, well, and I think that is also somewhat subsumed in the direction of city staff to continue working. But I think, yeah, because we ultimately have to have a lease here, I think including specific subject attorney approval.
Plan commission and city.
And really maybe what this specific city attorney approval being is the final lease and related documents.
Yeah.
Well, the SASO too, but
I mean, but Brian, is this consistent with, I don't know, when a developer, well, like the developer who wants to put in a building south on the south end of the north-south runway. I mean, I was looking at the packet, it just seems, or did they come to us prior to what's going in front of the plan commission, or no? This is like the first round, for example.
On that particular parcel, the first round, but they had previously been engaged on the parcel to the west.
Okay, so that is that why it's fairly quite comprehensive and laid out? Do we see stuff rougher? Is my question.
Airport commission, does the airport commission see stuff that's yes,
The
because
city in general, yeah.
I
mean, this is a first time for the airport. How did the last hangar go? This is how last time, I think Capital Flight was the last business to build a hangar.
I can't speak to that. I wasn't employed with the
Okay.
city back then, so I'm not sure.
It was really easy, Dave.
Okay.
It
Yeah, okay.
was really, really easy.
it was so easy that I don't think Larry or I were at these meetings.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. The motion between this body is the airport commission recommends: 1, plan commission and city council approval of land lease agreement with Capital Flight for development of an aviation base building at the parcel east of the existing terminal building, subject to city attorney approval. 2, further direct city staff to continue to work with the applicant on relevant components of the project. All right. That is the motion. Do we have a second?
I have a question.
Okay. Do you want, is your,
But before, just can we get
Yeah.
one who was the first maker of the motion, and we need to determine if there's a second first.
okay, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Is
I'll
there-
second.
Okay. Commissioner Woburn seconded. Now we can have a further discussion. Keep in mind, a motion in a second just now moves this to discussion on this motion. Go ahead, Cara.
Could I see the wording again?
Sure.
So just, you said anytime I had a question about a motion to make sure I asked. So even at the risk of, looking
No, it's
looking
not a risk.
stupid.
So, no. The motion,
You
the
know,
motion
because
is
this
on the
is-
floor.
This
It's
is
been
the part that's not my strength, right? So when the motion is about approval of a land lease agreement, so that's what we are voting on, a land lease agreement.
That's correct.
And it does not necessarily mean that, because we saw different proposals come up today for the building and added on, it does not mean at this point that we're agreeing to the specifics of the size of the building or the shape of the building. That's something that gets worked out now as it goes to plan commission and city council. This is the part where I'm not clear what happens, because to me, it looks like we're approving a land lease agreement without clarity about what exactly is the building that we're leasing.
Brian can,
To be more specific, yes, the site plan review would occur at the Plan Commission. As you've done tonight and in previous meetings, you've provided and can continue to provide your commentary on the proposal or the documentation that you've seen to date. But the site plan review would be, part of the Plan Commission and City Council ultimately.
And so where we would provide that ongoingly is where? Does it come back here? Does it go to Plan Commission? Like if we had other thoughts we wanted to express, where would that be expressed?
I think Plan Commission would be the next logical step for that once the land lease has been approved, for example, by the City Council, assuming that, then the applicant would be working with the Plan Commission on kind of the specifics of the site plan and the signage and all of that. So that would be the opportunity to weigh in on what the building looks like.
Including the size of it, whether it's 7,000 versus 8,000 versus an addition down the road.
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, there have been times in council where something made it all the way to the council, and a counselor intervened and said, "Hey, I'd like us not to vote on this tonight. I'd like you to send it back to a committee or commission for some further input." I mean, it happens.
Yes, the council has the opportunity to refer things back to other committees as it sees fit.
David,
Sure, I guess my question is along the lines of what we've been talking about, and just so I'm understanding, if we, after this vote, if we approve this vote, other than the possibility of the planning commission or a separate council member sending it back to us, there's no actual requirement that anything be sent back to the airport commission related to this. Is my understanding correct?
I'd confer with the city attorney, but the SASO agreement that would correspond with this land lease, assuming it's approved, would be reviewed by the airport commission before that would go to the city council. But as it relates to the location and design of the building, unless I'm missing something, that would be reviewed by the Plan Commission, City Council, correct, City Attorney?
I believe that is correct.
so I mean, we're not done yet. This is just the first part of it. The other thing, commissioners, that happens during this portion of a motion and a second, and now discussion, amendments can be inserted as well. So if there's something that is relevant to this motion that's in front of us, and we go, well, okay, we need to make an adjustment to it because we've gotten it this far, we can do that through an amendment. David, your hand's still up, or is that just up for?
Yeah, I'll take it down. I'm actually trying to look for something in the lease, but I think I'm satisfied for the moment.
Okay. All right, I'm looking around for some hands to see if there's any further hands up. Let's see, Kara.
So does an amendment mean like something like, I'm back on the whole RPZ thing, that as long as nothing interferes with an RPZ for the future development of a north-south paved runway, or something like that, is that?
I suppose some kind of amendment could be in there. This project would not have to conflict with, well, that's Plan Commission. I mean, city staff is going to look at that. We've already done that, sort of. So we've made that review with Mead and Hunt, and the documents are in front of you. So there is no issue with the current configuration of the
The current one.
runway, and there's no issue with the planned configuration to, move to try to restore the north-south runway to its original configuration. And as Commissioner Gatto stated earlier, what you see in the master plan for, say, I'll call it an ultimate future state of a 3,000 plus paved runway, that's just, it's a master plan idea. It could be shifted. It could be more, instead of northeast to southwest, it could be shifted more northwest slightly, as long as we don't hit the radio towers or something. I mean, it all has to comply from a BOA standpoint. But for all practical purposes, we're at a point where we're saying that chances of there being the ultimate runway development isn't going to happen. So we're moving ahead with this to consider the current state and the future state of the turf runway, getting it back to where it used to be. Commissioner David.
Yeah, just to clarify, since there was a little uncertainty, it does appear in Article 7 of the proposed lease under sub B construction that a final set of construction plans that have been approved and stamped by a registered professional engineer shall be submitted to and approved by the Planning Commission and the Airport Commission before any construction begins. So in that regard, it seems like the construction plans, including site plan, et cetera, will come back to us.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions regarding the motion? All right. So we'll just do a voice vote and see how that shakes out. All those in favor? Mutes off. Please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so the ayes have it. This proposal will move on to the city. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for hanging in there, and thank you for your patience.
And thank you from me as well. I promise we're going to build something you can all be very proud of.
Well, thank you for hanging in there, and thank you for your hard work and ongoing support of the airport. There's only two of you out there. You're both very important. So, okay, let me get back to my review, discussion, and possible action proposed on the modification to the minimum standards and special aviation service operation agreement related to independent certified flight instruction. This was brought to us by Mr. Stark, who would like to operate out of our airport as an independent CFI, and his business proposal is in the packet. So the question to this body is this something we're willing to prove, entertain, and discuss? So let's start with some discussion. Any thoughts? Kyle.
Yeah, this is where I started to jump ahead of myself earlier.
Well, now
today.
you're there, so
I can
have at
pick it right back up here. Yeah, I was saying that generally supportive, like the idea of kind of future. I mean, more people learning, the better, I guess, at the end of the day. The one concern, and I'll have it if you'll afford me an aside. I remember in the town I grew up in Illinois, we had a sportsman's club that was relatively close to downtown. There's a large development happened, let's say the early 90s. And in that kind of encroachment of those neighborhoods on the Sportsman's Club, there's a huge wave of complaints started up, which then posed kind of an existential threat to the club itself. Granted, airport, Sportsman's Clubs, two completely different things. But I was kind of alluding to, especially, just east of the Beltline, there are a lot of new neighborhoods being built on there. And the neighborhoods that exist are kind of close or pushing into that transition period where original buyers are going to start moving out. New people, such as myself, are going to start buying the houses. I enjoy airports. I'm worried about more transient students who aren't as familiar with voluntary noise abatement. I mean, I watch it from my backyard. I sit outside, and I can see everybody kind of turning crosswind if they're taking off from one-way 10, turning crosswind at 12. You can see that. You can see people who aren't. And that would be a worry of mine with that development, and especially transient instructors, transient students coming in. They're not familiar with the voluntary noise abatement. And, if they're waiting until they're 1,000-foot AGL to turn, that's going to be potentially start putting them over Northside Elementary and then that area, which is something that concerns me about potential future noise complaints in there.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you for the input. Charles.
Yeah, so as the alder who's one of two alders whose constituents are most likely to be impacted by that traffic, I do want to echo Kyle's concerns, but I'm also concerned about the elements of the proposal that I don't think we as a body necessarily have the legal authority to approve, with regard to where the pre-flight briefing might take place, and also with regard to where any post-flight debrief might take place. I believe there needs to be some indoor area, but the areas in the proposal, if I'm incorrect on this, appear to be rented by another party. Is my recollection there correct?
Rich can chime in.
Yes, this building is not owned by the city, as you may or may not remember. Oh gosh, what happened there? Okay. It is leased by Maury Airplane Company from Middleton Area Development Corporation. We also lease the land from the city. It's fairly substantial cost for us to operate. And as Matt Holfeld pointed out, grant assurances we need to have a level playing field for those operating out here commercially. So as the proposal, as I read it, states that they'd be using the conference room or the public spaces. Well, the public spaces would be, how to describe it, we're a business. Of course, we're going to be open to the public. We have people come in. We do allow civic organizations to use conference room for no cost. We do charge some people to use conference room, but it is a business, and to allow another business, a competing business, to operate out of the business that I'm spending close to $82,000 a year to, and that's not counting the heat and everything else. That's just rent plus the land lease. Yeah, that would be, I think I'd have to revisit our lease with the city because that isn't in it right now.
That is my recollection of the lease agreement as well. But I would defer to our city attorney on mechanisms that exist in the lease agreement with Maury Airplane Company.
Well, I'm not aware of anything in the lease that allows us to go in and unilaterally change the lease terms to open up, to take back part of the property or to force Maury to do anything regarding opening up its business to competitors to use its space. We have a lease. There's nothing in the grant assurances that allow us to go in and unilaterally renegotiate the lease term. So certainly that is one aspect of the proposal that just is not workable right now. Now, that doesn't mean that there might not be other hangars or indoor spaces that might be willing to lease the necessary space. Our current minimum standards, though, require quite a bit more. I don't have them pulled up. I'd looked at this before, I think, when there was a discussion about this being a variance, and certainly I think the indoor facility part is really not waivable. That's in the federal regulations, so that would have to occur someplace, and we don't have the power to force that upon the existing FBO under its lease. But that doesn't mean that that could not be satisfied by renting some other space that's available at the airport. The other conditions that we have about the size of space that's necessary and off space, before approving anything like this, I think we'd want to take a closer look at those requirements, how they fit in with the rest of the regulations. I did not go back and review things, but one of my notes was that, a lot of these things appear to, be geared towards ensuring compliance with those regulations. And I'm not saying that what we have is sort of the minimum standard that we couldn't do something different, but by the same token, they were certainly created with some purpose. I don't know all of those purposes. I think we'd want to go through and have a much better idea about why we have those requirements, what other things we need to be sensitive to make sure we're complying with all the federal regulations, and just overall what we feel that might mean in terms of the standards for services being provided at the airport. But I mean, I'm reasonably certain that legally we could do some relaxation of that, but how far we ought to go and what that really means, I think deserves some more scrutiny. And the other question that arose to me as I was looking at this is that our standards and specifications, we require to someone have a commercial pilot certificate. The application is using the term certified flight instructor. I don't know how those terms overlap, if at all. So that's something that probably need a little guidance from Rich or anyone else about those ramifications, and may have to go back and do a little research if we don't know the specific answers to those questions. But otherwise, it does not seem to me that, other than what certificates are required, I'm not certain that we really prohibit sort of this business model generally. It's really just the terms. And right now, the only term that I think is entirely inflexible is the need for indoor, the indoor business facility and pilot briefing area. That is not flexible, but again, could be commercially available elsewhere. But I don't think, if no one's willing, if we don't have the building space and no one else is willing to lease out the space, I don't think there's anything that requires us to go build more spaces or condemn space just to make room for another person. But as long as we're not legally prohibiting that from occurring.
Okay. The reason for my question.
I'm sorry, can I just jump in?
Wait a
Ex-
second.
Excuse me, I had the floor. I was asking questions
I
to
know,
the
but
staff as a point of
Mr.
order.
Stark was kicked out and he's kind of in the waiting
Hang
room.
on a second.
Okay.
Just wait, everybody. A person who is not a member of this body and did not speak during public comment period cannot speak during this agenda item. So I'm sorry, Ms.
Okay.
Bakla. Nor can Mr. Stark at this time. You know, this is an agenda item for deliberation by this body.
Oh, I'm
Thank you.
sorry. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
thank you.
So just to continue, the pre-flight briefing, as I understand it, and the post-flight debrief are both sort of foundational parts of all flying, but especially important for student pilots who are learning how to operate an aircraft safely. And that's why they're in the air. I feel incredibly uncomfortable relaxing that particular part of our standards at this time for indoor instruction or for indoor space for a SASO. I don't think that, for instance, conducting a pre-flight briefing in a parked car in the parking lot would be a conducive and any of the career lifelong pilots on this committee feel free to correct me. I don't think that would be the same as conducting it in an area with perhaps a board or other materials available where both parties are actually comfortable. So I'm not comfortable with moving forward with this at all. I think that we should postpone consideration until a future date when a proposal which addresses that concern has been met or has been submitted, because without that, everything else that we do is still going to be moot at the end of the day.
Thank you. I don't know who had the hands up in order.
Well,
Carl,
I'd like to
Dave.
just let me jump in real quick here.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with anything that's been said, but Ms. Bakula, who I don't know, I think what she started to say was that Mr. Stark, who's petitioning for this issue, got kicked off the call. And I'd really like to let him back in, not to participate necessarily, but so he can hear these comments. I think the comments Charles just made are extremely relevant for the applicant to be hearing, and apparently he didn't hear them if I understood what Ms. Bakula was saying.
No, everyone that was no, let everyone back in the waiting room that was in the waiting room. So there shouldn't be anybody that's
Okay,
not on.
he just came back on my screen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, David. Yep, he's back. Kara and then Ryan.
Well, I think mine actually is secondary to what Charles was saying, so I'm not going to add my 2 cents worth, but maybe Charles wants to restate somehow now that Mr. Stark is back on to listen, because I think Charles's points really supersede everything else that I was going to say.
Sure. And then we'll let Ryan speak, and then we can go back to Charles.
Well, I was just going to say that, I mean, as I read it, where and how pre and post flight debriefings and instruction go is not really the role of the airport commission to determine. I mean, if someone, I don't see an issue with independent instructors coming in and doing independent instruction. And I think, you know, the more activity that goes on is the better. How exactly that goes on, I don't think is really our role. I mean, if they do it in a parked car, that's fine. I've done pre and post flight debriefs in all sorts of places. You know, you do it where you can. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a classroom. Sometimes hot debriefs immediately after something happens, standing around under the wing of the airplane, is the best way to discuss something. So there's a variety of ways that these things can happen, frequently organically, that don't necessarily involve a classroom or anything along those lines, nor is it, I think, my feeling that we need to dictate that. And if we just cross that line out on that proposal, because we can't really dictate that to be happening in Maury Airplane Company's boardroom, which I think that's fair. That's his space. That's, you know, unless they rent that space to do instruction or something like that, that's certainly something I think that could be worked out. But, you know, dictating that an outside flight instructor have access to that room is, I don't know that that's necessarily fair either. So, as Rich said earlier. So anyway, I'll stop there.
Yeah. So just to restate it, it's very clear. It's CFR regulation 141.43, and it specifically states pilot briefing area. An applicant for a pilot school certificate or provisional pilot school certificate must show that the applicant has continuous use of a briefing area located at each airport at which training flights originate. That is, 1, adequate to shelter students waiting to engage in their flight training. 2, arrange and equipped for conduct of pilot briefings. And 3, except as provided in paragraph C, which is down below, of a section of a school with an instrument rating or commercial pilot course equipment with private landlines or telephone communication to the nearest FAA flight service station, which we know nowadays is replaced by a mobile phone or tablet computer or anything. But that means you do need potentially internet or some kind of access. A briefing area required by paragraph A, which we already discussed, in the section may not be used by the applicant if it is available for use by any other pilot school during the period it is required for use by the applicant. So, okay, that takes care of that piece of one school using the space. And then finally, the communication equipment required, referenced earlier in section A and 3, is not required if the briefing area and the flight service station are located on the same airport, are readily accessible to each other, which you know, Capital Flight and Maury currently meet. So, yeah. And I think that's probably what Charles said without reading the regulation.
More or less, yes.
Okay.
And so with that, I think that at this time, the proposal is deficient for further consideration, because that's a part of our standard that we can't change. So I move to postpone consideration of this proposal until such time as that is withdrawn. So we can consider it at a future meeting if it's resubmitted and doesn't violate that regulation on its face.
Yeah, I mean, there's exactly like you said, there's two moving pieces here. One is this proposal itself, and 2, our current existing SASO. So I think we can only really deal with one of them tonight and not deal with the other, because that would be another agenda item. Is that correct, Brian? I mean, we can't take on both.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about taking on the SASO?
Right. Right. Because I mean, we're being asked to rewrite our SASO to be more flexible to this request. And even if we did that, it still wouldn't mitigate 141.43.
Do you mean our minimum standards?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe a better way to look at this is that the proposal put in front of us from Mr. Stark doesn't currently meet our minimum standards. And as as Charles stated, you would like to defer it until maybe the applicant can come back at us?
Yeah, I mean that part of the standard isn't going to change because
Yep.
it can't from a regulatory standpoint. So I don't think that there's
Okay,
much to be gained from discussing the rest of the standards.
sure. Okay, so you had a nice motion there. Restate it, and we'll go with that.
Um, I moved actually because of the way that we noticed this. I think my motion may be out of order since we just discussed minimum standards. And oh wait, no, we did
Nope.
agreements.
No, we
Okay.
didn't put a motion out there yet. I was just asking a question to the city staff.
You may want to just, I mean, I think this is not a sort of application where a denial of the application precludes coming forward, and I think you've stated enough reasons and the rationale for Mr. Stark to go back to the drawing board if he wants. So it might be easier just to move to deny the proposal for the reasons discussed.
Okay. So the motion in front of us is to deny the proposal that's put before us from Mr. Stark until further date when he can come back to us with something that meets our current standards. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Alrighty. Any discussion?
Yeah, I've got a question. Is you were quoting Part 141 rules for pilot briefing areas? Aren't
Mhm.
most of these schools under Part 61 though? And are they the same? And I guess I would defer ask the CFIs and whether or not
Good
that's,
question.
is there a difference between 141 and Part 61?
Part 61 does say a freelance CFI can brief a student anywhere. There's
And-
no FAA facility requirement for Part 61.
Yeah, Part 141 schools and Part 61 schools, as I understand it, are two very different animals. So I think we're applying a Part 141 rule to something that's falling under Part 61.
You're correct, but our SASO is written to reflect 141 at this time.
Are is the instruction that's going on the field right now under Part 141?
Well, I guess that's not for me or us to judge. It's just that our SASO currently requires a office area to conduct business. So if you want to operate a business out of the Middleton Airport, you have to have an office space to do it. So then I guess my reading of the 141 briefing area may be immaterial because we're not a 141 school, but our SASO states you have to have an office. So that might, hopefully that clears it up. Does that make sense, Ryan?
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering why it was written to a 141 standard when we don't have 141.
Oh, a long time ago. Rich might know the history of that. But
And is that pertinent today?
well, not to our SASO, because our SASO says what has to be there to operate a business. And currently the applicant is not in compliant with our SASO. And that's it. So we can have a future discussion on modifying our SASO, but at this time, this applicant is not in compliance with our SASO. So we could have a future discussion of our SASO.
Is that something that comes up on our agenda? Or is
We
that something
can.
you have the authority to review?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we can't kind of put the cart before the horse. Mr. Stark wants to operate out of our airport right now under our current SASO is the way it's drafted, and his application isn't meeting those standards. So the motion is to defer his request at this time. I guess. Commissioners, any other comments? Jack? No?
I have one. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
But we can't see you.
Okay, I'm looking at
I can see him.
I have it on my PC here. I should be up on the PC, but I'll start two of them.
Yeah, I see him. No, you're there.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit confused by the back and forth here and what we're warming and what's actually had been asked. And I think the clarification that Ryan has brought up is pretty important here. I'm not, there wasn't a proposal or there wasn't a business proposal that was put forward necessarily in the request. As I'm reading the agenda item, they're asking for a specific change to the airport's minimum standards and requirements for aeronautical activities, which is the document that was included in the materials here. So you referred to our SASO, maybe that is, they're one and the same, but
yeah. Okay, you're right. So
that's exactly what that's what I thought was being asked of us, of the body.
okay, so what we can do is we can vote my motion down. And Brian, how do we take my motion off the table?
Yes, the cleanest path would be for the body to vote down the motion that's been made and seconded, and then we would be free to entertain any other new motions.
Yep, go ahead. We'll do that then. All those in favor, please say aye.
And just to be clear, before you vote, the motion you are being asked is whether or not you want to affirm or deny a motion to deny the proposal as submitted until it can meet the city standards. If you're being asked whether or not you want to deny it, affirm that motion by saying you're denying this application as it's been submitted. If you vote yes or aye, if you vote nay, then this motion would go away and we would be free as a body to make a new motion.
Yeah, that's my okay. So nay will allow the body to propose a new motion. Okay. So I'll state all those in favor would say all those in favor aye. And I'll say nay. Is that the right format, Brian?
Correct.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. All right. The nays have it.
Sorry, everyone has to signify nay if they're voting nay.
Yep.
No.
Nay.
Nay.
Okay.
Nay.
All right. Thank you, Jack and Ryan. Okay.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, please mute non-participants.
I don't, Brian's got the mute button. I think we're okay now.
Can you guys hear me at all?
Yep, you're
Any
back
chance
on.
You guys, can any of you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, Mr. Stark.
Okay, so I'm looking to change, sorry, I had technical difficulties. I'm looking to add 4.2 alpha under the current SASO under flight training to include independent instructors. So let me start with my presentation real quick. First of all, I've got 52 years of aviation experience grounded in airline level ethics, maintenance discipline, clarity, transparency, honesty, and safety. I have over 22,000 flight hours, including 6,000 in flight instruction in single, multi-engine, and jet transport. I hold 3 certificates for teaching CFI, the II, and the multi-engine instructor, with 2 airport transport pilots, one from the FAA US and one from Transport Canada, with multiple type ratings on top of that. I've also served in several Airline Pilot Association leadership roles while employed at Delta Airlines subsidiary for 25 years. I served as the executive administrator to the chairman. I was the chairman of the grievance committee and chairman of the professional standards committee. Our union served a pilot group of over 2,000 pilots between 1977 and 2011. Everybody knows that back in 2002, the city of Middleton made changes at the airport, but didn't update the FAA as required under Grant Assurance 29. Assurance 29 requires airports to keep the FAA informed of any changes affecting the airport layout. These issues were resolved by April 2022, and Middleton accepted FAA grant money under Assurance 29 and was now obligated to honor Assurance 22. Assurance 22 requires airports to make facilities available to all aeronautical users on fair and reasonable terms without granting exclusive rights. Independent instructors are recognized as aeronautical users, and allowing them to operate supports compliance with 22. Under the Special Aviation Service Operator Agreement, the SASO, any operator providing commercial flight training must, and this is what is current, for those people that are on the call that are not familiar with it, it does require to lease a 6,000 square foot ground space and construct a building. Minimum, 3,000 square feet of aircraft storage, 500 square feet of office, classroom, briefing, lounge, and rest room space. Maintain proper heating, lighting, and parking per section 3.8 of the SASO. Operate at least 2 certificated aircraft. I am looking to operate 1 or 2, including a 4-seat aircraft and 1 equipped for instrument instruction. Employ at least 1 commercial pilot with instructor rating on duty during business hours. These requirements were designed for large commercial operators, not individual CFIs. I'm almost done. Why these requirements cannot apply to independent CFIs. I currently operate 1 aircraft, conduct a not-for-profit instruction, and allow up to 3 additional CFIs to use my aircraft. Under FAA definitions, I am an individual aeronautical user as well as the 3 additional CFIs. We all maintain our own schedules, taxes, financial responsibility. We are not an FAA commercial flight school operator. I cannot financially construct such a facility. Independent CFIs are basically remote office operators. We brief in the aircraft, on the ramp, or in public areas. Not requiring these buildings frees limited airport land and space for commercial operators who truly need it. I'm currently operating 1 Cessna 172 4-seater aircraft that is a TAA, that is a technically advanced aircraft and fully capable of instrument training. This single aircraft already meets the FAA's definition of a properly equipped training platform without requiring commercial scale facilities. I do not employ staff or maintain commercial business hours. I do not now, nor do I intend to operate a commercial flight school. I'm a retired senior citizen on Social Security with no intention of being employed full-time or staying or starting a full-time business. These realities show why the current SASO cannot apply to independent CFIs. I propose a practical, safe, and FAA-aligned framework, one that I will personally follow and that the Commission may adopt as a template for future independent CFIs. 1, limit of no more than 2 aircraft per CFI owner. 2,
Okay,
commercial-
Mr. Stark, I'm just gonna have to cut us off at this point. We understand the intent and spirit of what you're getting at, and I think for this body to take on at this juncture a complete, we'll call it modification of our SASO agreement, what we're going to really need to do is have our city attorney and city staff look at both of these elements of it and see what can be brought back to this body as a whole for us to review, because we've already set a standard for the 2 operators at the airport. They're Part 61, and so we have consistency in the application of our current SASO. So I appreciate that input. So perhaps the motion discussion for this body and maybe a motion tonight would be to review our current SASO and see if there's something that we can do that would align it with a Part 61 operation, potentially. Matt Fleming, looking at you sort of.
There we go. Yeah, so as this discussion is going, yeah, I think either, motion to defer to the next meeting to permit myself and the city administrator to take a closer look at the proposal and compared to the Part 61 regulations. And
the other thing is, what amount of latitude does this body have, or the city, I should say, not this body, but the city have in establishing its SASO standards. So in other words, Part 61 might say, this is what you can do, but the city also has its standards. And so what is the city's desire to maintain and operate at a particular standard level with in being compliant? David.
Yeah, I just I guess more of an inquiry than anything, and that is apropos of the discussion regarding Capital Flight. Is a SASO agreement an agreement that you got to treat everybody equally? And so, did Capital Flight and Maury Airplane Company enter into a SASO agreement as it stands and invest an extreme amount of money based upon the requirements of that SASO agreement? And now here's someone else coming in under a SASO agreement that is not comparable. And again, under this issue of requirements for grant assurances that we treat people equally, does that apply to SASO agreements? It's a question of mine.
Yep. Because I just see us opening up a can of worms and saying, well, okay, now all of a sudden we're going to change our standards for operating out at the airport. I guess we need some guidance and guardrails from the city and city attorney. So
what I see, sorry, go ahead.
Is Mr. Stark, I think we're at this point, this discussion is going to be between this body, our city attorney, and staff. Thank you. So we're not going to be able to answer that tonight. And I think to Ryan's initial inquiry and to Jack's follow-up, let's make a motion that would be more appropriate could give city staff some guidance. And I guess what I'm looking for here is to
Mr.
be
Chair,
careful.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, Alder Myers has his hand open.
Oh, I'm sorry, Charles.
I move to postpone consideration of this item until such time that city staff and the city attorney have reviewed the questions raised during this meeting and have
Okay.
findings to return to the body.
Yep.
That works.
We'll accept that as a motion. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay. I'll second that. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. Thanks. We'll bring it back. Okay. Discussion on unleaded fuel updates. Oh, no, sorry. Am I missing an item? Just a second. I'm looking at different two electronic documents here.
Point of
Yep,
order.
item
Mr.
number
Chair.
3. Review and discussion, consideration, and potential action on the Wisconsin Bureau of Aeronautics airport rates and charge surveys associated with a competitive market analysis for our flowage fees. This is brought to us by Charles. Charles, take it away.
Yeah, so we know that we have a number of future expenses at the airport for which we will need to generate revenue. The fuel flowage fee is one of those items that we have at our disposal for bringing money into the airport for the purpose of paying for the operation of the airport and certain improvements to the airport. So because we now have the rates and tables from last year, it seemed like a good time to discuss them and see if there's any room potentially to bring more money into the airport via the fuel flowage fee.
Yeah, thank you very much. Commissioners, thoughts, ideas?
Mr. Chair, just to give
Yep.
a little bit of context. So the image that's on the screen now that was in your packet is just a table that summarizes pertinent examples from the 2025 BOA study. So the BOA study had all of the municipal airports. This pulled data from 2 different classifications, I would call it. The first one, so the first 5 that you see on the chart, excluding the Middleton Maury Airport, are the ones that are within 50, not nautical miles, but 50 statute miles. So kind of as the crow flies type of situation, within 50 miles of the Middleton Airport. So kind of our closest geographic competitors, if you will. And then the ones underneath the line, the empty line, are those that are of the same classification as Middleton Maury Airfield, which is the BOA classification of large general aviation. So those remaining ones are the ones that are in the same BOA classification as our airport.
Fantastic. What are your thoughts, commissioners? Any input? Nobody? Nobody? Jack? Charles? Go ahead.
Was first.
Jack?
Oh, am I up, Charles, or are you?
Nope, you, Jack. Go ahead.
I'm up. All right. Thank you. I guess, looking at just this in isolation, I think, there may or may not be something there. I think in prior businesses, when you're looking at your product wares and your fact sheets and things like that, a comprehensive look at all the different things that you could potentially assess on your rate sheets is something that I think would be a healthy thing. I'm sure it happens on a regular basis. This might be the only one though that necessarily we can control, but I think doing this with some input in more than just maybe our body, I think would be something I would recommend. Having intel as well from other FBO or other FBO owners or other aviators, I think would be helpful for what in totality they look at for making called technical stops at airports when you're looking to fuel, and what drives your decision to necessarily stop there or not stop there. And it's not just your fuel prices necessarily.
Thank you. Charles.
Yeah, so okay, I'm unmuted.
Yep, you're good.
Yeah. So the reason that I included the fuel price and the flowage fee, or I asked Brian to include those, is because those struck me as the two most closely correlated variables for the overall price of a gallon of fuel. Jack, you're definitely right. The ability to engage in other services almost certainly impacts the behavior of market participants. But I do think it's important for us to see whether, in terms of the average cost per gallon on each of these different fuel types, we have room potentially to increase the flowage fee and thus revenue into the airport if there are specific services that you'd like included in this that drive fuel consumption. I'm definitely open to postponing this while we conduct that research. I want to make sure that whatever we refer to council with regard to the flowage fee is as complete as possible. That was the spirit of the amendment, requiring a comparative market analysis before alterations to the flowage fee. So if you have them, now would be a great time to suggest them so that perhaps we can get to it at the next meeting.
Thank you, Charles. Rich.
Well, I just wanted to point out that the old FBO agreement limited, I believe, the flowage fee to 1 cent a year increase. The new flowage FBO contract, which will go into effect January 1st, was specific both with Charles and David's input to keep the flowage at relative market rate. So if you look at the 50 nautical mile or statute mile, you can see we're definitely on the high end of the market rate. There's some other, I think, an anomaly. I am not at East Troy Airport. I kind of doubt they've got a 50-cent a gallon flowage and only charging $4.29 a gallon. But that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to remind everyone involved of what the current or the soon-to-be current fixed base operator agreement says, and that it really should be considered as to what is the in the market, the relative market.
Thank you. Jack.
Corey, did Rich hit on some of them there? I'm just curious, did you change the price of gasoline $1? What does that do to the forecast, utilization during Oshkosh week and tie down fees and other things that aren't related to necessarily, fund income and more to the FBO income and utilization of the airport? I'm not sure. I'm not in a position to understand the price elasticity associated with raising the price of gas, the price of the AF gas, a certain amount, or jet fuel a certain amount.
May I speak to that?
Yep.
Okay. Jack, you know people that are flying to Monroe and filling themselves up with fuel because they can save 50 cents a gallon or whatever it is on this field. Especially transient traffic will look at ForeFlight. They'll check the rates. They'll check if they've spent their $500 to be on a special discount. They'll find all of those sources and they'll plan their route along those lines. We keep our prices as reasonable as we can. We're a good staging area for those waiting for weather going into Oshkosh, so we sold a bit more fuel. To give you an idea, we sold we at 11 cents a gallon. We paid on this year. We'll be paying the city over $15,000. Now, if you go to 22 cents a gallon, that puts us at a very disadvantage, or big disadvantaged with other suppliers, and now you get $30,000, probably less because we'd have to charge more. So you're getting a small bump, an extra 15, all things considered, doesn't do a heck of a lot. Now our tie down fees are very minimal, just enough to pay for ropes and hooks and the expense incurred essentially for that, because we want people to be stored here, based here. But yeah, and I know by contract, the city is, the big money is in the land lease, yet we have that, I think, goes up by the level of inflation, and that can be adjusted. I can't remember every year or every 5 years, but so yes, we could double our rates or bump it up a little more. Most likely, being people are flexible and can land wherever they want to, they're going to go out elsewhere if they can and buy fuel. Some won't. Some will go with the convenience. But if we are considerably higher than those airports around us, our volume will shrink. So doubling our, and I know that's a kind of a hyperbole, but if you double your flowage, maybe you'll get 15,000 more, maybe you'll only get $10,000 more. That's one of those market analysis things that's pretty difficult to really put out.
Cara.
Correct me if this is not something germane to this discussion, but I just want a little bit more of an understanding, maybe from you, Rich, about suppliers. Like, aren't there only a few suppliers that most of these airports all utilize the same suppliers? And so that wouldn't necessarily explain the variability between airports in price for fuel?
That is correct. We operate out of a distributor out of Chicago area called Aero Energy. There's another one, and I'm not sure of the name, out of Minneapolis area, but those, just because of the transport requirements, those are the two closest, and those I'm sure take care of the bulk of the of Wisconsin's fuel. And honestly, their fuel prices really don't vary much between suppliers.
Thank you.
Jack, go ahead.
Thanks. Just following up, Rich, I appreciate that. And I think it would be an interesting exercise if, and I know we have the enterprise fund model to be able to do this, but we can't, we're capped out on hangar space. We have no more available hangar space. We have very economical hangar land lease rates. And I know this is heresy. All the other pilots are going to be very irritated with me for saying this, but that is, if you want to, I'd be curious. We should be giving the gas away and raising the hangar rates, and you would see, not giving it away, maintaining maybe the existing flowage rate, or even lowering it a little bit. I think the elasticity of your gas sales would go through the roof. And with a higher land lease rates, which I don't know what the legalities of changing our existing leases right now would be, or not. I don't know what, I have to review my lease, but you would the hangars will be utilized by those that want to utilize them and will utilize them, and they won't be hung on to anymore by folks who are maybe aren't utilizing them very much. And there's a supply demand equation right there that is a little bit out of balance with the available supply of hangar space at more. Just my thoughts on the overall enterprise fund pricing scenario.
Thank you. Charles.
So, first, to be very clear, I'm not proposing doubling the fee. I would appreciate it during discussions if people did not insert hypotheticals into a proposal. I'm proposing a market-based change. That's item number one. Item number two is we can certainly discuss and should discuss hangar leases at a future meeting, but we did not notice that at this meeting, so we can't engage in further discussion along those lines.
Got it. Thank you.
Charles, I wasn't implying that that's where we were going. I just used it as an example of what would be gained even if, and I pointed out that was hyperbole. That was not something that would have been contemplated. So I apologize if my meaning was not,
No, I think you're fine. We didn't get into the weeds of it. We're okay. Brian's here. Matt's here. We're all right.
Okay.
Yeah, we're on track. Anybody else have any other input?
I think we're actually
okay.
Just other factors to consider
Sure.
When assessing.
I mean, this can be a discussion only item, and we can continue it. We can simply direct staff, I think, without a motion, to continue to investigate this and see what we can do in terms of looking for and analyzing comparable rates based in the region.
Just a question, Mr. Chair. So if you're going to provide that direction to staff to continue the analysis, can the commission give some insight or direction on what additional items you would want added or further analyzed, just so we can know what to spend our time on?
Yeah, I think one of the things, our airport is being categorized as our classification size. It also has a lot to do with our flight activity, our sheer volume. And there are other airports in the area, for example, Reedsburg, that wasn't on here. I mean, they have a 4,000-foot runway, so it might be we draw that circle around Middleton out 50 miles. It doesn't matter whether it's nautical or statute at that point. And maybe we just look at all the airports, because Monroe certainly, Middleton simply does have more volume in terms of flight, and that shows, but yet Monroe outsells Middleton in unleaded fuel. I mean, sorry, brain somewhere else, fuel. But we know that they do not have the number of takeoff and landing operations we do. So it might just be worthwhile just pick a swatch, 50 miles, and see what everybody sells their fuel at, and then see what we can do with that info. How's that sound? Okay. And any other thoughts on that? I'm making notes here for future discussion items, so we can circle back. Okay. Thank you, Charles. To be continued. Jack?
Sorry, I had one last. Who makes the call on what the flowage fee is? Whose decision is that?
Ultimately, it'd be the city council as the operator or the owner of the airport.
Okay. Moving on to our next item, discussion and update on unleaded fuel, standing item. Couple things. One, we'll get an update from our Commissioner Randall because she attended a couple things at Oshkosh that I think are relevant to pass along to us. Two, the FAA just released its first official version 1 guide. And for moving forward, it's no longer a draft document. And Brian will get that posted on the city website. We just redid the whole city website. So,
Yep, it's posted on the city website already, and
oh,
it's part of your
okay.
packet materials.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for doing that, Brian. And so I won't get into that document. It's there. And I think it's probably more interesting to hear what our Commissioner Randall has to provide.
I think, well, first I want to say, I think for the sake of time, I'm going to just be really brief. And since the FAA has released that, I think it would behoove us as commissioners to just take a peek at that and have a sense where we're going. But all I do want to say is that I love attending EAA and the seminars. And this year I made a point of going to the 3 manufacturers that are contenders at this point for 100 no lead, GAMI, Swift, and VP Racing. And I think what I want to leave the commission with, and really any, for community record, is like, it is so clear that there is a commitment to do something about lead in the fuel. And it is also clear that this is a very large object to move, and it's going to take time. Everything from Lycoming and Continental getting on board about some specific things with their engines, Ram Aircraft and their modifications, additives that are going into Swift and VP Racing that there's thoughts and they're working with. It is very clear across all 3 of the manufacturers that they are all aiming to potentially vie for one position. And that to me was news. I didn't realize that it's a possibility that the FAA may only select one supplier, which makes another challenge. But that may change as well. It was like almost everything I went to was like, well, here's the current status, but this may change. So the main takeaway I had is even the 2030 idea there of us coming up with an unleaded fuel by 2030 is basically not likely to happen. Maybe 2032, maybe even longer. But the clear message is there's a commitment, which is also fostering some interest in what can we do with our 100 low lead. Like now it's reigniting the path of maybe there's some things to do with 100 low lead to improve in this. Because the pathway to have a fleet-wide commitment, which the FAA does have, by the way, they're not going to make a shift to 100 no lead until an entire fleet-wide general aviation can switch to that. At least that was the message that I got from the different seminars that I went to. So if anyone has other information to correct me from what I was like rapidly trying to absorb, but I just want to encourage people that we're moving in that direction, but it is going to be a slow beast. And I'm also proud that, that our city is committed to be along for that ride and be one of the first players when we can. And the other piece I want to throw in right next to this is that the world of vertical takeoff and lift, and especially electric vertical takeoff and lift, is exploding and may even happen faster than our unleaded fuel. So a future topic for discussion for this commission might be what it looks like down the road as this the public is demanding this, their other industry is demanding this, and it is something that would behoove us as a commission to start thinking about how can we prepare it as a city to be one of the leaders when this comes, and how does that fit into our overall plan. So I think that's all I want to say, for tonight, and we can revisit this or even the vertical takeoff and lift topic at another time.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. And vertical takeoff, or as they're now calling it, AAM, Advanced Air Mobility, I think falls right in line with UL. I mean, these are all alternatives to leaded fuel as a big picture. So, and I think it's this is not off topic to say this, but we do have in our petitions to the BOA asks for getting charging infrastructure out at the airport. And I can't imagine for a moment that the BOA doesn't see this on the horizon either. So
Right.
thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. That's excellent. I really appreciate all that
Oh,
information.
thank you. And the only other thing I want to add is that our regional representative for AOPA, Kyle Lewis for the Great Lakes, is really committed to this and in working with neighboring states who are also along the same lines. So he has offered to be a resource for us. And so if there's a way I can, have him, more involved and keep us up to date and be an advocate as well. We have a team of a little bit further reach than just us trying to come up with things for ourselves here.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So
Jack,
just,
go ahead.
sorry, just to piggyback on that, he wrote a very good summary in the AOPA online chart about the three main competitors and kind of where they're at on each of their approvals and SECs and all that stuff. Just last week after the EAA session.
Oh, Jack,
fantastic.
If you can find it, then just forward it to Brian.
Will do.
Thank you. Oh, excellent. Yeah, it's very encouraging. Thank you so much for putting the time and effort into that. Does anybody else have any questions for our newly minted unleaded fuel expert? Okay. All right, Brian, we can look at some finances. We know they're exciting.
Yep. So I've got the financial report in there with data from through the end of June, using the same format we used the last couple of meetings. That you seem to react positively to that in terms of just having more detail on the line item. No major issues that I was informed about from the finance department. I'll continue to provide you updates as I get them.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Brian? All righty. Everybody is sufficiently burned out. Good. So, future agenda items. We're going to the SASO discussion will be back on a future agenda. Follow up with fuel flowage fee information. And let's look at what our land lease rates, get a snapshot picture of it, and start a discussion on that. So I think I've got all three commissioners' input on that. Are we missing anything that we'd like to see? Jack, go ahead.
The air taxi and air mobility thing I think is interesting, and I'm curious how others are incorporating it into their airports. Where would the facilities exist? What kind of space requirements do they require? Do they replace any current space requirement? That's the logistics of how they would fit into the physical space of how airports are doing that.
Yeah, and I know Brian does have on his future list item right now, and that is to have the BOA come in and call it, give us kind of the big picture update, and so we can have some of these discussions with them as well. I know you're probably would be Colin, right, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay. And
and also one other item likely would be our next meeting. I'll have, I think, a draft of 2027 budget for the airport, so that will likely
that's
be
right.
in September.
Okay. All right. And then so for an in-person meeting, September, I think we have some, I think our commission falls on a date in September that is not going to work? Check.
I'll send a message to the commission to ask them for their availability for an in-person meeting,
Okay.
either September 3rd or October 1. And then we can adjust based upon availabilities.
Yeah, jumping right over to September 3rd. Okay, no, I think we're okay with September 3rd in terms of no conflicts outside of the calendar. Yeah, so maybe not. So I would ask individuals to just get a email off to Brian so he can work on that.
I'll send an email to commissioners to
thank you.
respond directly to me.
Okay, and Rich?
I know we can all look at Brian's treasurer's report and see where we're getting funds, but it might be worthwhile for the body as a whole to go over all of the revenue sources, what the contracts state. For instance, we've got the solar panel lease, we've got ag leases, we've got land leases, we've got obviously the fuel. So all of that, and then what the actual contracts are stated and where there is potential room for additional revenues, as well as perhaps some creative ideas that might come out. But it might be useful for this body to have gone through that and see what we're encumbered to and what are signed up to do and what might be an option.
Sure.
We can do that. I'll just be honest and say that would not be ready for our next meeting, but we can. I'll work on that.
City staff is going into budget season right now, and they are going to be tied up with that. I want to be respectful of that. So yeah, maybe we can bite off some of that moving forward in small bits too.
Yep.
All righty. Okay, members, I'm checking one more time for future agenda input. I want to thank everybody in a lot. We've put a lot of time and effort into this agenda tonight. I know it was very difficult, but we got there. We got to the finish line on some big things, and your time and your input is just vital to the future of the city and where we're taking things. So with that, we do stand adjourned. Thank you.
Good, everyone.
Everyone.
Good night.